Hello, I'm Sarah from The Mind Mentor, and today I've decided to go out on a limb and put together a very quick presentation. And I've done about 15, 20 takes on this, and then I realised, what am I fussing about? Because I don't have to be perfect. The video doesn't have to be perfect, and the key thing is that I'm doing it with the best of intentions, and hopefully it will be of value to you. So today's topic is about reaction. And the reason I've chosen this is through my own experience and through spending time with other people and helping people with their mental health and well-being. I've realised one of the common things that we tend to do is to be very hard on ourselves in how we react to particular situations. In fact, we can be really, really harsh in judging ourselves in how we respond to particular situations. And being hard on ourselves often doesn't make sense, is often unjustifiable, and it certainly isn't healthy, kind, or productive. So hopefully by explaining things in what I hope is to be quite simple terms, you may see reactions in a different light and therefore be less judgmental of yourself and potentially judgmental of others as well. So in order to do this, I'm using some paper, some scrunched up paper as a bit of a prop. Now what we have here is an ordinary event. Okay, so this paper represents something that would happen that's quite common, that happens to most people every day, such as going for a drive, meeting people and being surrounded by people at the shopping centre, maybe receiving a telephone call or a text message. All pretty common stuff. Now, when an event occurs, we see it from our own eyes. So if two people are experiencing the same event, it doesn't mean that they're going to see it in exactly the same way. So that's point one. We all see reality in a different way to each other. Generally, we see it pretty much the same, but there's always a slight variation because we're all unique. Now, when an event comes along, we have a reaction. And, that's quite normal, completely understandable. So, for example, phone rings, you suddenly hear it and you're okay and you go and grab your phone. So that would be a normal event and a normal reaction. Nothing unusual there. Now, the situation arises sometimes where we have big events in our lives. And these events can be quite challenging. They're abnormal in that they're not common, they're not typical of the everyday, and not everyone will necessarily experience them. And when we have negative experiences, they can be particularly memorable as well. And when you have a reaction to something like this, don't expect your response to look like this, okay? So when we have a big reaction, it's not going to look like this. It's going to look like this, okay? So the important thing is to realise that when you have a big reaction, it's because a big event's occurred. Now, that event may not seem big compared to someone else, but for you, it is a big deal. And therefore, even though your reaction might be different, it is actually comparable to how you see that event. I'm going to break it down to a very simple scenario. We're in Disneyland, okay? And we're going to go on a roller coaster. Now, for you, that might be something that you do every day. You don't think it's a big deal. So for you, it's just an event, no big deal. And therefore, your reaction to that experience is quite normal. You go through, you do it, you might have a laugh and have a great time. For me, however, a roller coaster, not a pleasant experience. So for me, the event is really quite significant in that I don't want to go on it. I have a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety around it. And so the reaction that I have as I'm going on that roller coaster is going to be pretty extreme. Now, that doesn't mean that my reaction is wrong. What it just means is that I'm seeing the experience differently to what someone else is seeing. So we've got a situation like this where two people experiencing exactly the same event, but I'm viewing the event in a different way to how someone else is viewing an event, and therefore my reaction is different. And it's really important to remember not to do this, where you think that you're having this big reaction, you know you're having this big reaction, but you minimize or make small the event. And therefore you're doing an unfair comparison, when really what you should be doing is taking note of how important that event is for you, and therefore how significant your response is. It's completely normal. And finally, to take it one step further, when we have lots of big events in our lives, or a lot of events that are significant or painful, our body remembers those, and it remembers how to protect ourselves from that. And after a while, it starts to have difficulty in distinguishing between what's a basic event and what's one of these negative events. So in someone who may not have had the negative exposure that you've had, they may come across a situation and their body sees it like this. However, your body sees it like that. And that's because it is trained to be really cautious and careful, because it doesn't want you to get hurt anymore. Therefore, you have one of these. So when you have a big reaction to what is really, in most people's eyes, a fairly basic event, don't bash yourself up over it, because what your body is actually doing is it's not just reacting to the small event, it's actually reacting to a whole series of history that sits within your body, and therefore this is how it's responding. And it's only responding that way because it's trying to keep you safe. It's an abnormal response, yes, but if you compare it to all the history that you've got, the response becomes normal. Abnormal event, normal response. So the question is then, if you continue to have abnormal responses to normal day situations, then you can overcome that. But it requires retraining your brain to realize that the small events in life are actually safe events, and that it's okay to have a minor response. That takes time, that takes patience, and that sometimes it takes the assistance of a professional. But there is help out there, and hopefully as I continue with the Mind Mentor Club, I can share some of the things that I've learnt to tackle my reactions, because I'm certainly one individual that has overreacted to situations simply because my body has had to do that in the past in order to protect myself. So fingers crossed that's of value to you. Thank you so much for listening, and I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments, not just what you thought of this presentation, but whether there is any other topics that may be of interest to you, and also how you found the video format and my useful tools. Have a great day, everyone, and make sure you're kind to yourself. Thanks for listening.